Good to be with you all today. Kambria Evans here, EMDRIA approved consultant, EMDR certified clinician here in my office in San Jose, California. I have a private practice here where I work with EMDR clients around complex trauma, relational trauma, attachment trauma. I also offer EMDR consultation and EMDR trainings and offerings, obviously now all remotely and online. Been making lots of YouTube videos since COVID started in the hopes that I could help my fellow therapists, my fellow EMDR therapists. Today's video is really for all therapists because today I'm going to be talking about COVID. And I'm going to be talking about the framework that I have developed to make sense of COVID and the framework that I'm sharing with my clients so they can kind of see where they are in the COVID process. I hope to share that with you, and hopefully it's helpful today. I also have a couple tools and tricks I've been using with clients as we are going through this COVID process, knowing that it is a framework with steps. And it's been working really well. It's been helping my clients feel a sense of empowerment, agency, and so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you today. And as always, you can take what you need and go with that. So for those of you who can't watch the whole video, as always, I have a free downloadable guide that summarizes what I talk about in today's video. You can go to my website, KambriaEvans.com. There's a free resource tab for therapists, or you can click on the link below. It'll take you right there. So COVID. Everyone's talking about COVID. Everyone's living through COVID, and we're on month 6 or 7, depending on where you live. Here in California, for us, it's month 6. And at this point, I think we're all pretty much on the same page about what COVID is and what COVID isn't. We're pretty much on the same page about what we have to do to keep ourselves safe, right? We have to social distance. We have to wear masks. Not really safe to go in large groups of people. We all are kind of settling into understanding the trauma that we are in. There's more of, I think, of an alignment among us to understand what is happening to us. That's finally being defined, and I think we're all kind of coming out of the surreal shock mode of this and settling into this is this right now. So I've been using what I'm calling kind of the COVID framework with my clients to help them understand what's happening, what's happened, and what will happen moving forward. I want to talk about this COVID framework kind of like an analogy of a television remote control, okay, to help you understand the 4 phases. Okay, so phase 1, or part 1 of the COVID framework. If you think about the TV remote control, COVID took away a lot of our TV channels. It took away most of our TV channels. And the channels that we have left kind of put a pause button on those channels. So we're kind of left with only a couple of channels. They may not have been our favorite channels. It's not HBO. And even those channels are just like slow motion or paused. And so to be more clear, COVID has taken away a lot of our distractions, okay? A lot of those distractions are also nourishing for us, right? Some of those, I love Bravo, right? I can watch Real Housewives forever. It's my like junk food for my head. We have had nourishment that was, either healthy or unhealthy taken away from us with COVID. So knowing that we've had distractions and nourishment taken away, such as, our commute time alone as a parent, those commute times are precious. It's a good alone time. We've had our social engagements taken away. COVID's taken away a lot of the stimulation that we used to experience. So in a lot of ways, there's a lot more space. A lot more space now, right? Because there's fewer channels on the TV. And so this leads us to phase number 2, or part number 2 of the COVID framework, which is that COVID has turned up the volume so loud. It has exaggerated what is. Okay, let me be more clear about that. A lot of my clients are saying things to me like, I'm home with my partner and I'm really seeing these parts of our dynamics that I kind of knew were there, but I'm really seeing them. I'm really feeling them. Everything's like intensified. Everything that was at like a 3 or a 4 is now at a 10. It's so loud and I can't not see it, right? I'm sure you've heard this too as a therapist from your clients, maybe in different words. So we're seeing relationship dynamics and attachment dynamics, right? With our kids. We're seeing how our kids have attached to us and how we're attached to our, even maybe our own parents, if we're either near them or missing them, okay? All of these things are getting really clear right now. What else has had the volume turned up? Well, triggers, right? We can very clearly see a lot of triggers right now. And what is a trigger, right? A trigger is just something that reminds us of something else. Triggers can be positive and negative, y'all. So if I see a Christmas tree farm and there's little Christmas trees growing, I'm going to have a positive trigger. Oh, Christmas is coming soon. I get to decorate a tree, okay? But for our clients, a lot of it is negative triggers, right? And there's lots of space to see those now, and the volume's turned up, distractions are taken away, and lots of nourishment is gone. After the trigger, what is turned up? Well, our adaptive responses, okay? So here's an example. If my coworker on a Zoom meeting is telling me that I haven't done a good enough job on a project, and inside I'm thinking, I've been working so hard, I've been trying to be a stay-at-home worker with kids in the house, and I'm trying to homeschool them, I'm doing so much, and I'm getting activated and triggered around this belief of I'm not good enough or I'm doing it wrong, just like I experienced with my parents, okay? Again, this is just a hypothetical example, but I'm sure, you've heard a lot of your clients noticing not just their triggers, but their adaptive responses. So in this example, what is the adaptive response? I'm going to completely shut down and not say anything, just like I did with my dad. Or I'm going to get really big and loud and scream at my coworker. Or maybe not my coworker, maybe I'm going to get off the Zoom call and go scream at my partner because they're safer, right? Just like I saw the adaptive response of my parents yelling at each other, okay? So we're all kind of figuring out right now, what are our clients' very clear and turned up triggers? What are their very clear and turned up adaptive responses, kind of their go-to default programming in their brains of what they do after they get triggered, right? And we're seeing all these relationship dynamics. So we're seeing a ton of patterns in relationships because we're all together all the time. Okay, that was part 2. Okay. Part 3, COVID has clarified what we can see. Again, going back to this analogy of the TV remote, it's almost like it's zoomed everything in or it's brightened the contrast on the picture, right? So I want to ask if that's a bad thing. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat COVID because COVID's horrible and it's painful and it's infuriating and it's all the feelings in the grief cycle every day over and over again. So I'm not sugarcoating COVID, but I am asking a question, which is it a bad thing that this COVID framework is happening? Is it a bad thing that we are able to see with more clarity now? Because all these distractions have been taken away, everything's been turned up, right? So I want to just leave that question with you to ask your clients, right? Because as an EMDR therapist, in a way, it really articulates our target, doesn't it? Right? If we have all these noise taken away, and we have volume turned up, and we have triggers going every day or every week, it's a pretty straightforward target to work on for EMDR, isn't it? And for those of you who don't do EMDR, it's a pretty straightforward place to focus your therapy, isn't it? So just again, is that bad or good? That it's clear, okay? COVID has clarified a lot of our negative cognitions, right? all the triggers and adaptive responses, COVID has really clarified kind of the story that we tell ourselves, right, about what's happening to us. So in the example that I used with the Zoom with the coworker kind of attacking somebody, and in that, the story, the makeup might be, the negative cognition might be, I'm not good enough. I can't do it right. Or I don't have what I need. I don't have what I need. I'm stuck in my garage working and my kids are screaming and I'm supposed to be doing my job right now. I don't have what I need. So sometimes the story that we tell ourselves, sometimes the negative cognition we tell ourselves is disproportionate or untrue, meaning that it stems from something before to give attention to. And EMDR, it would point us towards doing a float back, right, to an earlier time. But sometimes it's true. Sometimes the negative cognition is true, isn't it? Right? I don't have what I need right now because this situation is set up for me to actually fail and not succeed at anything. Okay? So that leads me to phase 4, or part 4 of this kind of COVID framework, which is, how do we use the remote control next? Assuming that we could control something in this process, assuming that we could have some agency, how do we respond now? I mean, we're going to respond unconsciously in some way, but if we were to respond consciously, what would that even look like, right? So imagine giving this framework to your client and saying, here's what's happening. Does that fit your experience? And they might say something like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I feel a little bit more calm now that I understand what's happening, not just for me, but for everyone, maybe in the whole world. Okay, how do you want to respond? Now that we understand what's happening, how do you want to respond? Consciously, intentionally. Because if we don't choose it, we're still going to respond somehow unconsciously or unintentionally. So I think asking clients just that question empowers them and highlights for them that they're making a choice. What do you want to do with this remote? Right? So this leads us to kind of the tools, techniques, and strategies that I have been using in my own life and offering my clients. And I wanted to share this with you. So how do we respond? This is how I've been responding. This is how I'm encouraging my clients to respond. So think about this. This is what I'm calling the pandemic pass. Okay. I had a client who, I shouldn't laugh, but I love him so much. So he says to me, Cambria, he's working in his garage right now, and he has little kids at home who are screaming. You know, he can hear them screaming. He and his wife are splitting up childcare. They have a little bit of like nanny coming in, but it's like all hands on deck. Pretty crazy. He said to me, Cambria, I had my annual review with my boss, and I didn't get exceeds expectations. I only got meets expectations. And he was devastated. He was devastated. He said, I think of myself as an A+ player. This is who I am. This is how I show up. He said, my boss told me that I'm more of like a B+ player. And I said to him, shit, you got a B+ in a pandemic? Working in your garage with no windows? That's incredible to me. Like, can we have balloons fall down from the ceiling right now? This is amazing, okay? And it shifted for him the expectations that he's putting on himself. Because here's what's happening, okay? A lot of us are expecting of ourselves to be who we were before COVID. We are expecting to be our pre-pandemic selves during a pandemic. And I want us to think about, how do we use our pandemic pass, which is a valid pass because there is an actual pandemic happening and it will be the only one we have in our lifetime, I hope. But just like, I tell moms going on maternity leave, how do you want to use this time? You don't have to do the things you had to do before. Okay? So another example, I did a video on healthcare workers last week before. I don't know. Time is weird now. Recently. And I had a great comment from a friend of mine who said, I think doctors need to change their expectations about what they can do now, because I don't know if saving lives should be the expectation, right? So in a pandemic pass, what does a healthcare worker expect from themselves? Knowing that right now, telling yourself you have to be who you were before COVID while in COVID is actually setting yourself up to fail. Okay, does that make sense? So if you were to take this idea of a pandemic pass and offer this to your clients and say, tell me who you were pre-pandemic. Who was pre-pandemic Kambria? Well, she went to the gym 3 times a week and she wore pants to work. I'm wearing gym shorts right now, you guys, and the gyms are closed. So notice that, right? She ate really healthy. And she would take her kids all these places and, take them just to preschool. And I can't do any of that stuff right now. And nor should I expect myself and shame myself and guilt myself and feel bad about myself because those things aren't happening, okay? I want you to ask your clients, what does pandemic Kambria look like now? Let's talk about what pandemic Kambria is going to do during a pandemic. I understand that pre-pandemic Kambria was fantastic. Let's talk about pandemic Kambria, because she's pretty fantastic too, okay? So I want you to have your clients think about these 2 people. This is a huge identity shift, okay? Pre-pandemic client name, pandemic client name, okay? I want you to have them list out their roles. My roles are wife, mother, therapist, friend. And I had a whole bunch of sub-bullets under those roles about what I could do pre-pandemic. That list looks so different now, y'all. So different, as it should, okay? So if you could actually have your clients write down and visually see pre-pandemic and pandemic. What are my roles and what can pandemic client name, pandemic Kambria, do in those roles during COVID? Okay, so something to think about. Another tip or tool to get through this with a pandemic pass as kind of the meta idea or meta category is to think of I want you to have your clients think of a slogan or a mantra. What is your COVID mantra? I have 2, and I'm going to share them with you. The first one is simple pleasures, small victories. What does that mean? Let me give you some examples. Simple pleasures. Oh, the restaurant opened up. We can do curbside pickup. Awesome. We get to have a restaurant meal in our house tonight. Simple pleasure. Okay? Simple pleasure. Oh my gosh, my kid's on iPad for 2 hours straight. I can just sit here and stare at the wall. Simple pleasure. Another example of a small victory this time, right? Simple pleasures, small victories. We went to a park and it wasn't totally crowded, so we could actually stay and be safe. Small victory. My kids got to ride their scooters at the park. Okay? I want you to task your clients with thinking about, what are my simple pleasures? What are my small victories? Okay? They're going to look different right now, but they're still there. We just have to notice them. Okay? This is a little positive psychology for us right now. My second mantra or slogan, I actually made a cup. I don't know if you guys can see this. But this says, 2020, you basic. Okay, obviously this is a thing from a funny TV show. But this is on my desk every day, and I have this during client sessions to help me remember and my clients remember. It's basic, y'all. It's like 2020 is basic. It is C+. We are passing the class. Okay? So these are my mantras and slogans that are helping me. I would love to have you ask your client what are theirs, because I know they're going to think of one. And they could even make t-shirts. We actually, in our family, have another mantra or slogan. And we actually put this on cups and gave it to our neighbors. So some of you know that I have 3-year-old twin girls. And they say all sorts of funny things that we think are hilarious and adorable. And a couple months ago, right around when COVID started, my daughter Annie turned to us and she said, "Is it today?" And my husband and I thought, that is like the perfect COVID mantra. So we made cups for all of our neighbors that say, "Is it today? Quarantine 2020." Okay? So there's 3 examples of a mantra or something that helps us through this. And it can be fun. It can be funny too. But ask your clients what they can come up with. The next idea is this beautiful, powerful question that has saved many marriages, which is, can I let this go? Can I let this go? My partner's cranky again. It's the 3rd day in a row. Wearing the same pants. Ugh. Can I let this go? My kids are fighting because they're fighting over the same toys because they can't go anywhere. Can I let that go? Right? Can I let this go? Might be a powerful question we take with us post-COVID. Right? And that leads us to another tool or technique, which is, what is post-COVID Cambria going to be like? I already outlined my pre-pandemic Cambria, my pandemic Cambria. What does post-pandemic Cambria look like? I imagine that if you were to ask your clients this question, they might actually have 3 different columns. And that 3rd column, what does post-pandemic Cambria look like, might be a blend of the first 2. Because this experience is changing us. It's changing what we think is important. It's changing how we see ourselves and our identity. And that might not be a bad thing. Okay? So we're thinking about how we, workers, moms, doctors and nurses, teachers, I love you teachers. I love you so much. How do we all define success for ourselves? Okay, we have a pandemic pass. We understand what that is. Okay, but how do we define what a successful parenting situation looks like? How do we define what a successful marriage looks like? In other words, what does an A+ look like during COVID? That might be an interesting exercise to ask your clients. Here's what I came up with for my own list. Everyone's is different. It's a personal choice, okay? But my list is like this. Number 1, flexibility. If I can be flexible every day, I get an A+ during COVID, right? Saying no because I have this much bandwidth to share, that's extra. Or maybe no bandwidth, that's extra. But maybe saying no during COVID gives me an A+. Okay. Number 3 on my list is triaging every day. Did I do a good job triaging today? Which is a different question than, did I get my list done today of all the things I wanted to do? Did I just triage what needed to get done? Right? So I think this is really helpful, this exercise, for our clients who want to get the A+, who want to think that they did it great. If they have a list of what does an A+ look like during COVID, they can just check it off. And at the end of the day, I did a great day today. I was flexible. I triaged what had to get done. I said no to like 8 things because I can't. So, Again, grief is a personal process. Trauma is a personal process. I believe that the things that I'm noticing just personally in my house, in my own therapy work, with my own clients in session, I believe that these frameworks and tools and techniques can help you as my fellow therapist that I adore and treasure, and also your clients, okay, because we're all figuring this out together, aren't we? So I hope that some of this was helpful today. Again, I will have this all summarized beautifully for you in a downloadable guide that you can review. And also page 2 of that guide will actually have all of these exercises for your client, so you can just email them this homework sheet. It'll be all packaged beautifully for you, just like I have in my practice. Or you can use these questions organically as they come up in session and conversation. So again, I am here to just love on you and just say you're doing an incredible job. As therapists, we don't hear this enough. And I want you to know that if no one has told you this today, I think you're awesome. I think that you are a warrior. I also think that you're human. And I want to invite you to think about your own lists to get through this, because you are a precious, precious resource right now. Would love to hear from you. I always enjoy getting your emails. My email is Kambria@KambriaEvans.com. Would love to know how any of this impacted you personally, if it's helping any of your clients. And if you have any questions about, things I've talked about today or in previous videos, if you have any ideas for things you want me to talk about next time, I would love to hear all of that. So feel free to reach out and know that you're not alone. I'll be on here soon to make another video. And in the meantime, be healthy, be safe, and be well. Take care.